Hello. My name is Charlie, and today I'm going to be reading some fairy tales. Yeah. So the fairy tale I'm starting off with is The Frog King or Iron Henry, and it's from Brothers Grimm Fairy Tales. In old times, when wishing still helped one, there lived a king whose daughters were all beautiful, but the youngest was so beautiful that the sun itself, which has seen so much, was astonished whenever it shone on her face. Close by the king's castle lay a great dark forest, and under an old lime tree in the forest was a well. And when the day was very warm, the king's child went out in the forest and sat down by the side of the cool fountain. When she was dull, she took a golden ball and threw it up on high and caught it, and this ball was her favorite plaything. Now it so happened that on one occasion the princess's golden ball did not fall into the little hand which she was holding up for it, but onto the ground beyond, and rolled straight into the water. The king's daughter followed it with her eyes, but it vanished, and the well was deep, so deep that the bottom could not be seen. On this she began to cry, and cried louder and louder, and could not be comforted. And as she thus lamented, some one said to her, "What ails thee, king's daughter? Thou weepest so that even a stone who shall show pity will show pity." She looked round to the side from whence the voice came, and saw a frog stretching forth its thick, ugly head from the water. "Ah, old water splasher, is it thou?" she said. "I am weeping for my golden ball, which has fallen into the well." "Be quiet and do not weep," answered the frog. "I will help thee. But what wilt thou give me if I bring thy plaything up again?" "Whatever thou wilt have, dear frog," said she, "my clothes, my pearls and jewels, and even the golden crown which I am wearing." The frog answered, "I do not care for thy clothes, thy pearls and jewels, or thy golden crown. But if thou wilt love me, and let me be thy companion and playfellow, and sit by thee at the little table, and eat off thy little golden plate, and drink out of the little cup, and sleep in thy little bed, if thou wilt promise me this, I will go down below and bring thee thy golden ball up again." "Oh yes," she said, "I promise thee all thou wishest. If thou wilt bring, I promise thee all thou wishest, if thou wilt but bring me my ball back again." She, however, thought, "How the silly frog does talk! He lives in the water with the other frogs and croaks, and can be no companion to any human being." But the frog, when he had received this promise, put his head into the water and sank down, and in a short time came swimming up again with the ball in his mouth, and threw it on the grass. The king's daughter was delighted to see her pretty plaything once more, and picked it up and ran away with it. "Wait, wait," said the frog. "Take me with thee. I can't run as thou can." But what did it avail him to scream his croak and croak after her as loudly as he could? She did not listen to it, but ran home, and soon forgot the poor frog, who was forced to go back into his well again. The next day, when she had seated herself at a table with the king and all the courtiers, and was eating from her little golden plate, something came creeping splish splash, up the marble staircase, and when it had got to the top, it knocked at the door and cried, "Princess, youngest princess, open the door for me." She ran to see who was outside, but when she opened the door, there sat the frog in front of it. Then she slammed the door to in great haste, sat down to the dinner again, and was quite frightened. The king saw plainly that her heart was beating violently, and said, "My child, what art thou so afraid of? Is there perchance a giant outside, who wants to carry thee away? Ah, no, she replied. It is no giant, but a disgusting frog. What does the frog want with thee? Ah, dear father, yesterday when I was in the forest sitting by the well, playing with my golden ball, fell into the water, and because I cried, so the frog brought it up out again for me, and because he insisted so upon it, I promised him he should be my companion, but I never thought he would be able to come out of his water, and now he's outside there and wants to come into me. In the meantime, it knocked a second time and cried, Princess, youngest princess, open the door for me. Dost thou know what thou saidst to me yesterday by the cool waters of the fountain? Princess, youngest princess, open the door for me. Then the king said, That which thou hast promised must thou perform. Go and let him in. He said. She went and opened the door, and the frog hopped in and followed her step by step to her chair. There he sat still and cried, Lift me up beside thee. She delayed until at last the king commanded her to do it. When the frog was once on the chair, he wanted to be on the table, and when he was on the table, he said, Now push the tiny golden plate nearer to me, that we may eat together. She did this, but it was easy to see that she did not want to do it willingly. The frog enjoyed what he ate, but almost every mouthful she took choked her. At length he said, I have eaten and I am satisfied. Now I am tired. Carry me into thy little room and make thy little silken bed ready, and we will both lie down and go to sleep. The king's daughter began to cry, for she was afraid of the cold frog, which she did not like to touch, and which was now to sleep in her pretty, clean little bed. But the king grew angry and said, He who helped thee when thou wert in trouble ought not afterwards to be despised by thee. So she took hold of the frog with 2 fingers, carried him upstairs, and put him in a corner. But when she was in bed, he crept to her and said, I am tired. I want to sleep as well as thou. Lift me up, or I will tell thy father. Then she was terribly angry and took him up and threw him with all her might against the wall. Now thou wilt be quiet, Otis Frog, she said, but when he fell down, he was no longer a frog, but a king's son with beautiful, kind eyes. He by her father's will was now her dear companion and husband. Then he told her how he had been bewitched by a wicked witch, and how no one could have delivered him from the well but herself, and that tomorrow they would go together into his kingdom. Then they went to sleep, and the next morning when the sun awoke, a carriage came driving up with 8 white horses, which had white ostrich feathers on their heads and were harnessed with golden chains. And behind stood the king's servant, Faithful Henry. Faithful Henry had been so unhappy when his master had changed into a frog that he had caused 3 iron bands to be laid around his heart, lest it should burst with grief and sadness. The carriage was to conduct the young king into his kingdom. Faithful Henry, helpful, and helped them both in and placed himself behind again, and was full of joy because of this deliverance. And when he had driven a part of the way, the king's son heard a cracking behind him, as if something had broken. So he turned around and cried, Henry, the carriage is breaking. She took hold of the frog with 2 fingers, carried him upstairs, and put him in the corner. Okay, there's a picture that I'll show. I don't know if you can see it, but oops. I'm just gonna, that's the princess, and that's the frog. I have bad lighting, but yeah, that's what's shown in the picture. No matter, it is not the carriage, it is the band from my heart which was put there in my great pain when you were a frog imprisoned in the well. Again and once again, while they were on their way, something cracked, and each time the king's son thought the carriage was breaking, but it was only the bands which were springing from the heart of the faithful Henry, because his master was set free and was happy. Well, that was a really beautiful fairy tale. It reminds me of The Princess and the Frog. I guess that's kind of what it's based off of. The Princess and the Frog was actually my favorite Disney movie as a kid, so yeah, I like that one. Okay, I'm gonna read another one. It's called Cat and Mouse in Partnership. A certain cat made the acquaintance of a mouse, and he had said so much to her about the great love and friendship she felt for her, that at length the mouse agreed that they should live and keep house together, but we must make a provision for winter, or else we shall suffer from hunger, said the cat, and you, little mouse, cannot venture everywhere, or you will be caught in a trap some day. The good advice was followed, and a pot of fat was brought, but they did not know where to put it. At least, they did not know where to put it. At length, after much consideration, the cat said, I know no place where it will be better stored up than in the church, for no one dares take anything away from there. We will set it beneath the altar and not touch it until we are really in need for it. So the pot was placed in safety, but it was not long before the cat had a great longing for it and said to the mouse, I want to tell you something, little mouse. My cousin has brought a little son into the world and has asked me to be a godmother. He is white with brown spots, and I am to hold him at the christening. Let me go out today, and you look after the house by yourself. Yes, yes, answered the mouse. By all means go, and if you get anything very good, think of me. I should like a drop of sweet red christening wine too. All this, however, was untrue. The cat had no cousin and had not been asked to be a godmother. She went straight to the church, stole to the pot of fat, began to look at it, licked the top of the fat off. Then she took a walk upon the roof of the town, looked out for opportunities, and then stretched herself in the sun and licked her lips whenever she thought of the pot of fat. Not until it was evening did she return home. Well, here you are again, said the mouse. No doubt you have had a merry day. All went off well, answered the cat. What name did they give the child? Top off, said the cat quite coolly. Top off, cried the mouse. That is a very odd and uncommon name. It is a very usual it is I'm sorry. It is a usual one in your family. What does it signify? Said the cat. It is not worse than crumb stealer, as your godchildren are called. Before long, the cat was seized by another fit of longing. She said to the mouse, You must do me a favor and once more manage the house for a day alone. I again ask to be a godmother, and as the child has a white ring around its neck, I cannot refuse. The good mouse consented, but the cat crept behind the town walls to the church and devoured half the pot of fat. Nothing ever seems so good as what one keeps to oneself, she said, and was quite satisfied with her day's work. When she went home, the mouse inquired, And what was this child's christened? Half done, answered the cat. Half done. What are you saying? I've never heard the name in my life. I'll wager anything is not in the calendar. The cat's mouth soon began to water from some more licking. All good things go in threes, she said. I am asked to stand godmother again. The child is quite black, only it has white paws, but with that exception, it has not a single white hair on its whole body. This only happens once every few years. You will let me go, won't you? Top off, half done, answered the mouse. There are such odd names, they make me very thoughtful. You sit at home, said the cat, in your dark gray fur coat, long tail, and filled with fancies. That's because you do not go out in the daytime. During the cat's absence, the mouse cleaned the house and put it in order, but the greedy cat entirely emptied the pot of fat. When everything is eaten up, one has some peace, said she to herself, and well filled and fat, she did not return home till night. The mouse at once asked what the name had been given to the third child. It will not please you. Oh, okay, hold on. This is a picture. That is, with the story. I don't know. This lighting isn't that good, but yeah. Okay, so this is the last sentence I left off on. The mouse at once asked what name had been given to the third child. It will not please you more than the others, said the cat. He is called All Gone. All Gone, cried the mouse. That is the most suspicious name of all. I have never seen it in print. All gone. What can that mean? And she shook her head, curled herself up, and lay down to sleep. For this time forth, no one invited the cat to be a godmother. But when the winter had come and there was no longer anything to be found outside, the mouse thought of their provision and said, Come, cat, we will go to our pot of fat, which we have stored up for ourselves. We shall enjoy that, yes? The cat answered, You will enjoy it as much as you would enjoy sticking that dainty tongue of yours out the window. They said, okay. I'm sorry, this is just funny to me. They set out of their way, but they arrived. The pot of fat certainly was still in its place, but it was empty. Alas, said the mouse, now I see what has happened. Now it comes to light. You, a true friend, you have devoured all when you were standing godmother. First off, then half done, then will you hold your tongue? Cried the cat. No, one word more, and I will eat you too. Okay, let me reread that. I'm laughing. It's just funny to me. I'll explain it in a second. Okay. Alas, said the mouse, now I see what has happened. Now it comes to light. You, a true friend, you have devoured all when you were standing godmother. First top off, then half done, then will you hold your tongue? Cried the cat. One word more and I will eat you too. All gone was already on the poor mouse's lips. Scarcely had she spoken before the cat had sprang on her, seized her, and swallowed her down. Verily, that is the way of the world. Wow, that is a true Brothers Grimm fairy tale. I was laughing because the names of the children, like the godchildren, were going over my head. But it's funny because the cat was naming the children after, like, I don't know. I don't really know how to explain it, but I don't know why this is even funny to me. This story is obviously about how, you'll get tricked and devoured. But it's kind of funny to me. I don't know why. Okay. So let's go on to another story. Let's see. Okay, this next story is kind of long. Ooh. Okay, this story is really long. Do I have the patience for this? It might be a good story. I hope it's interesting. I mean, all the Brothers Grimm stories are interesting. I mean, what else are we going to do? This is kind of my plan for this video, so yeah, I'll read it. This is the third story. The story of the youth who went forth to learn what fear was. A certain father had 2 sons, the elder of whom was sharp and sensible and could do everything, but the youngest was stupid and could neither learn nor understand anything. And when people saw him, they said, There's a fellow who will give his father some trouble. When anything had to be done, it was always the elder who was forced to do it, but it was his father, but if his father bade him to fetch anything when it was late or in the night time, and the way led through the churchyard or any other dismal place, he answered, Oh no, father, I not go there. It makes me shudder. For he was afraid. Or when stories were told by the fire at night, which made the flesh creep, the listeners often said, Oh, it makes us shudder. The younger sat in the corner and listened with the rest of them. and could not imagine what they could mean. They are always saying it makes me shudder. It makes me shudder. It does not make me shudder, thought he. That too must be an art of which I understand nothing. Now it came to pass that his father said to him one day, Hearken to me, thou fellow in the corner there. Thou art growing tall and strong. Thou too must learn something by which thou canst earn thy living. Look how thy brother works, but thou dost not even earn thy salt. Well, father, he replied, I am quite willing to learn something. Indeed, if it could but be managed, I should like to learn how to shudder. I don't understand that at all yet. The elder brother smiled when he heard that, and thought to himself, Good God, what a blockhead that brother of mine is. He will never be good for anything as long as he lives. He who wants to be a sickly must bend himself betimes. I don't know what that means. He who wants to be a sickle must bend himself betimes. Probably a saying from the past, but anyways. The father sighed and answered him, Thou shalt soon learn what it is to shudder, but thou wilt not earn thy living by that. Soon after this, the sexton came to the house on a visit, and the father bewailed his trouble and told him how his younger son was so backward in every respect that he knew nothing and learnt nothing. Just think, said he, when I asked him how he was going to earn his bread, he actually wanted to learn to shudder. If that be all, replied the sexton, he can learn that with me. Send him to me, and I will soon polish him. The father was glad to do it, for he thought it will train the boy a little. The sexton therefore took him into his house, and he had to ring the bell. After a day or two, the sexton awoke him at midnight and bade him arise and go up into the church tower and ring the bell. I feel like I read that wrong. Let me read that again. After a day or two, the sexton awoke him at midnight and bade him arise and go up into the church tower and ring the bell. Okay, I guess I read it right. Thou shalt soon learn what shuddering is, thought he, and secretly went there before him. And when the boy was at the top of the tower and turned round and was just going to take hold of the bell rope, he saw a white figure standing on the stairs opposite to the sounding hall. Who is there? Cried he. But the figure made no reply and did not move or stir. Give an answer, cried the boy, or take thyself off. Thou'lt have no business being here at night. The sexton, however, remained standing motionless, that the boy might think he was a ghost. The boy cried a second time, What dost thou want here? Speak if thou art an honest fellow, or I will throw thee down the steps. The sexton thought, He can't intend to be as bad as his words, uttered no sound, and stood as if he were made of stone. Then the boy called to him for the third time, and as that was also to no purpose, he ran against him and pushed the ghost down the stairs, so that it fell down 10 steps, remained lying there in the corner. Thereupon he rang the bell, went home, and without saying a word, he went to bed and fell asleep. The sexton's wife waited a long time for her husband, but he did not come back. At length she became uneasy. My throat. I'm dry. Reading makes my throat dry. Anyways. At length she became uneasy and wakened the boy and asked, Dost thou not know where my husband is? He went up the tower before thou didn't see? Now, I don't know, replied the boy, but someone was standing by the surrounding hole on the other side of the steps, and as he would neither give an answer nor go away, I took him for a scoundrel and threw him down the stairs. Just go there and you will see if it was he. I should be sorry if it were. The woman ran and found her husband, who was lying moaning in the corner, and he had a broken leg. She carried him down, and then, with a loud scream, she hastened to the boy's father. "Your boy," she cried. "He has been the cause of a great misfortune. He has thrown my husband down the steps and made him break his leg. Take the good-for-nothing fellow away from our house." The father was terrified and ran thither and scolded the boy. "What wicked tricks are these?" said he. "The devil must have put this into thy head." "Father," he replied, "do listen to me. I am quite innocent." He was standing there by the night like one who intended to do some evil. I did not know who it was, and I entreated him 3 times either to speak or to go away. "Ah," said the father, "I have nothing but unhappiness with thee. Go out of my sight. I will see thee no more." "Yes, father, right willingly. Wait only until it is day. Then will I go forth and learn how to shudder, and then I shall, at any rate, understand one art which will support me." "Learn what thou wilt," spake the father. "It is all the same to me. Here are 50 thistles. I don't know how to pronounce that. Thistles? I don't know. But anyways, here are 53 souls for thee. Take these and go into the wide world and tell no one from whence thou camest and who is thy father, for I have reason to be ashamed of thee." "Yes, father, it shall be as you will. If you desire nothing more than that, I can easily keep it in mind." When the day dawned, therefore, the boy put his 50 thacers into his pocket and went forth on the great highway and continually said to himself, "If I could but shudder, if I could but shudder." Then a man approached who heard this conversation which the youth was holding with himself. And when they had walked a little farther to where they could see the gallows, the man said to him, "Look, there is the tree where 7 have been married, the ropemaker's daughter, and now learning how to fly. Sit down below it and wait till night comes, and thou wilt soon learn how to shudder." If that is all that is wanted," answered the youth, "it is easily done. But if I learn how to shudder as quickly as that, thou shalt have my 50 thracers." I don't know how to pronounce that, but anyways, "just come back to me early in the morning." Then the youth went to the gallows, sat down below it, and waited till evening came. And as he was cold, he lighted himself a fire. But at midnight the wind blew so sharply that in spite of his fire he could not get warm. And as the wind knocked the hangmen against each other, they moved backwards and forwards, and he thought to himself, "Thou shiverest below by the fire, but how those up above must freeze and suffer." And as he felt pity for them, he raised the ladder and climbed up, unbound one of them after the other, and brought down all 7. Then he stirred the fire below and set them all round it to warm themselves. But they sat there and did not stir, and the fire caught their clothes. So he said, "Take care, or I will hang you up again." The dead man, however, did not hear, but was quite silent and let their rags go on burning. On this he grew angry and said, "If you will not take care, I cannot help you. I will not be burned with you." And he hung them up against each in his turn. Then he sat down by the fire and fell asleep. And next morning the man came to him and wanted to have the 50 thacers, and said, "Well, dost know how to shudder?" I'm trying to pronounce it right. "Well, doubts thou know how to shudder?" "No," answered the boy. "How was I to get to know? Those fellows up there did not open their mouths, and were so stupid that they let the few old rags which they had on their body get burnt." When the man saw that he could not carry away the 50 thasers that day, and went away, saying, One of this kind has never come in my way before. The youth likewise went his way, and once more began to mutter to himself, Ah, if only I could but shudder. Ah, if only I could but shudder. A Wagner, who was standing behind him, heard that, and asked, Who art thou? I don't know, answered the youth. Then the Wagner asked, From whence comest thou? I know not. Who is thy father, that I may not tell thee? What is it that thou art always muttering between thy teeth? Ah, replied the youth, I do so wish I could shudder, but no one can teach me how to do it. Give up thy foolish chatter, said the Wagner. Come, go with me. I will set about a place for thee. The youth went with the Wagner, and in the evening they arrived at an inn where they wished to pass the night. Then at the entrance of the room, the youth again said quite loudly, If I could but shudder, if I could but shudder. The host, who heard that, laughed and said, If that is your desire, there ought to be a good opportunity for you here. Ah, be silent, said the hostess. So many inquisitive persons have already lost their lives. It would be a pity and a shame if such beautiful eyes as these should never see the daylight again. But then you said, However difficult it may be, I will learn it. For this purpose indeed have I journeyed forth. He let the host have no rest until the latter told him that not far from thence stood a haunted castle where anyone could very easily learn what shuddering was if he would but watch in it for 3 nights. The king had promised that he would venture. The king had promised that he who would venture should have his daughter to wife. This sentence is confusing me. Okay, the king had promised that he would venture should have his daughter to wife, and she was the most beautiful maiden the sun shone on. Okay, I get it now. If he goes in the castle, he can get married to a king's daughter. Okay. Now, where was I? Okay, great treasures likewise lay in the castle. Oops. I had a low battery. I wonder if that froze my camera. I don't think it did. Wow, this video is going to be long. I'm going to finish this story and it'll be the last one. I'm almost done. Okay. I gotta find my place. Great treasures likewise lay in the castle, which were guarded by evil spirits, and these treasures would then be freed and would make a poor man rich enough. Already many men have gone into the castle, but as yet none had come out again. Then the youth went next morning to the king and said that if he were allowed, he would watch 3 nights in the enchanted castle. The king looked at him, and as the youth pleased him, he said, Thou mayst ask for 3 things to take into the castle with thee, but they must be things without life. Then he answered, Then I ask for a fire, a turning lathe, and a cutting board with the knife. The king had these things carried into the castle for him during the day. When the night was drawing near, the youth went up and made himself a bright fire in one of the rooms, placed the cutting board and knife beside it, and seated himself by the turning lathe. Ah, if I could but shudder, he said, but I should not learn it here either. Towards midnight, he was about to poke his fire, and as he was blowing it, something cried suddenly from one corner. Ah, Mao, how cold we are! You simpletons, he cried from one corner. Ow, Mao, how cold we are! You simpletons, cried he. What are you crying about? If you are cold, come and take a seat by the fire and warm yourselves. And when he said, Okay, and when he said that, two great black cats came with one tremendous leap and sat down on each side of him and looked savagely at him with their fiery eyes. After a short time, when they had warmed themselves, they said, "Comrade, shall we have a game at cards?" "Why not?" he replied, "but just show me your paws." Then they stretched out their claws. "Oh," said he, "what long nails you have. Wait, I must first cut them a little for you." Thereupon he seized them by the throats, put them on the cutting boards, and screwed their feet fast. "I have looked at your fingers," said he, "and my fancy for card playing has gone." And he struck them dead and threw them out into the water. But when he had made with but when he had made away with these two and was about to sit down again by his fire, out from every hole and corner came black cats and black dolls. I'm sorry, black dogs with red hot chains, and more of them came until he could no longer stir, and they yelled horribly and got on his fire, pulled it to pieces, and wanted to put it out. He watched them for a while quietly, but at last, when they were going too far, he seized his cutting knife and cried, away with ye, vermin," and began to cut them down. Part of them ran away. The others he killed and threw out in the fish pond. When he came back, he blew up the embers of his fire again and warmed himself. And as he thus sat, his eyes would keep open no longer, and he felt a desire to sleep. Then he looked around and saw a great bed in the corner. "That is the very thing for me," he said, and got into it. When he was going to shut his eyes, however, the bed began to move on its own accord and then went over the whole castle. "That's right," he said, "but go faster." Then the bed rolled on as if six horses were harnessed to it, up and down over thresholds and steps. But suddenly, hop, hop, it turned over upside down and lay on him like a mountain. But he threw quilts and pillows up in the air and got out and said, "Now anyone who likes may drive," and lay down by his fire and slept till it was day. In the morning the king came, and when he saw him laying on the ground, he thought the spirits had killed him, and he was dead. Then he said to he, "After all, it is a pity. He is a handsome man." The youth heard it and got up and said, It has not come to that yet." Then the king was astonished, but very glad, and asked how he had fared. "Very well indeed," he answered. "One night is over. The two others will get over likewise." Then he went to the innkeeper, who opened his eyes wide and said, "I never expected to see thee alive again. Hast thou learned how to shudder yet?" "No," he said, "it is all in vain. If someone would but tell me." The second night, he went again. The second night, he again went up into the old castle and sat down by the fire, and once more began his old song, if I could but shudder." When midnight came, an uproar and noise of tumbling about was heard. At first it was low, but it grew louder and louder. Then it was quiet for a while, and at length, with a loud scream, half a man came down the chimney and fell before him. "Ho, ho!" cried he. Another half belonged to this. "This is too little." Then the uproar began again. There was a roaring and a howling, and the other half fell down likewise. "Wait," said he, "I will just blow up the fire a little for thee." When he has done that and looked round again, the two pieces were joined together, and a frightened man was sitting in his place. "That is no part of our bargain," said the youth. "The bench is mine." The man wanted to push him away. The youth, however, would not allow that, but he thrust him off with all his strength and seated himself again in his own place. Then still more men fell down, One after the other, they brought 9 dead men, legs and 2 skulls, and set them up in place and played a 9 pins with them. The youth always wanted to play and said, "Hark you, can I join you?" "Yes, if thou hast any money enough," replied he, "but your balls are not quite round." Then he turned the skulls and put them in the lathe and turned them till they were round. There now, they will not now. Okay, I'm sorry. There now, they will roll better. He. "Hurrah! Now it goes merrily." He played with them and lost some of his money, but when it struck 12, everything vanished from his sight. He lay down and quietly fell asleep. Next morning, the king came to inquire after him. "How has it fared with thee this time?" asked he. I have been playing at 9 pins," he answered, "and have lost a couple of farthings." "Hast thou not shuddered then?" "Eh, what?" said he. "I have made merry. If I did but know what it was to shudder." The third night, he sat down again on his bench and said quite sadly, "If I could but shudder." When it grew late, 6 tall men came in and brought a coffin. They said, "Ha ha, that is certainly my little cousin who only died a few days ago." Then he beckoned with his finger and cried, "Come, little cousin, come." They placed the coffin on the ground, but he went to it and took the lid off, and a dead man lay therein. He felt his face, but it was cold as ice. "Stop," said he, "I will warm thee a little," and went to the fire and warmed his hand and placed it on the dead man's face. But he remained cold. Okay, this is a really long video, but I will finish this story. Then he took him out and sat down by the fire and laid him on his breast and rubbed his arms that the blood might circulate again. As this also did no good, he thought to himself, when 2 people lie in bed together, they warm each other. And he carried him to the bed, covered him over, and lay down by him. After a short time, the dead man became warm too, and began to move. Then the youth said, "See, little cousin, have I not warmed thee?" The dead man, however, got up and cried, "Now will I strangle thee." "What?" said he. "And that is that the way is that the way thou thinkest me? Thou shalt at once go into thy coffin again." And then he took him up, threw him into it, and shut the lid. Then came the 6 men, carried him away again. "I cannot manage to shudder," he said. "I shall never learn it as long as I live." Then a man entered who was taller than all the others, looked terrible. He was old, however, and had a long white beard. "Thou wretch," cried he, "thou shalt soon learn what it is to shudder, for thou shalt die." "Not so fast," replied the youth. "If I am to die, I shall have a say in it. I will soon seize thee, said the fiend. "Softly, softly, do not talk so big. I am so strong as thou art, and perhaps even stronger." "Well, we shall see," said the old man. "If thou art stronger, I will let thee go. Come, we will try." Then he led him by the dark passage to a smith forge, took an axe, with one blow struck an anvil into the ground. "I can do that better," said the youth, and went to another anvil. The old man placed himself near and wanted to look on, and his white beard hung low. Then the youth seized the axe, split the anvil with one blow, and struck the old man's beard in with it. "Now I have thee," said the youth. "Now it is thou who wilt have to die." Then he seized an iron bar and beat the old man till he moaned, and entreated him to stop, and he gave him great riches. The youth drew out the axe and let him go. The old man led him back to the castle, and in the cellar showed him 3 chestfuls of gold. "Of these," said he, "one part is for the poor, the other is for the king, and the third is thine." In the meantime it struck 12, and the spirit disappeared. The youth therefore was left in darkness. I shall still be able to find my way out, said he, and felt about, found the way into the room, and slept there by his fire. Next morning the king came and said, "Now thou must have learned what shuddering is." "No," he answered. "What can it be?" "My dead cousin was here. A bearded man came and showed me a great deal of money down below, but no one told me what it was to shudder." Then said the king, "Thou hast delivered the castle and shalt marry my daughter." "That is all very well," said he, "but still I do not know what it is to shudder." Then the gold was brought up and the gold was brought up and the wedding celebrated. But howsoever much the young king loved his wife, and however happy he was, he still said always, "If I could but shudder, if I could but shudder." And at last she was angry at this. Her waiting maid said, "I will find a cure for him. He shall soon learn what it is to shudder." She went out to the stream which She went out to the stream which flowed through the garden and had a whole bucket full of gudgeons brought to her. At night, when the young king was sleeping, his wife was to draw the clothes off of him and empty the bucket full of cold water with the gudgeons in it over him, so that the little fishes would sprawl about him. When this was done, he woke up and cried, "Oh, what makes me shudder so? What makes me shudder so, dear wife? Ah, now I know what it is to shudder." Okay, so that's the end of the fairy tale. Basically, it was about a guy who didn't know what it meant to shudder. I guess he didn't know what it meant to feel cold or to feel fear. And I just found the story kind of funny. But yeah, that's all. Thanks for listening, and yeah, have a good night.